Our next guest is entering his second season as a head coach of the Maryland baseball team. We are so happy to have on Coach Matt Swope ahead of the season beginning next Friday. Coach, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So you talked about it a little bit at Media Day, but as a lifelong fan, kind of what was it like watching the Commanders this past season? You had noted how you kind of saw some similarities between you and DQ and kind of the culture of both those programs.
Yeah, surprising. I think anybody that watched Jane Daniels knew he was special, but to have that turnaround from last season with 4 wins to this year, I think I commented that in the Detroit game, I just was pure joy. I mean, it was just so shocking and so surprising across the board. It was just pure joy and something for me. We won 3 Super Bowls when I grew up. It was a big part of my childhood, kind of growing up. My dad was a DC cop and took me down there a lot, so it was really special for me. And just more importantly, just for the community, going to the gas station, going to the grocery store, seeing people actually bring back some pride into that organization. And even Katie was a cheerleader for the then Redskins for 10 years. So we have a lot of tradition in the house. So it was just pure joy. So it was exciting.
You kind of took the mantra of anybody, anywhere, anytime from the Commanders for your team this upcoming season. You also formed a leadership council this year, something that you guys had not had in previous seasons. Kind of what was the point of creating that 4-player group for your team, and what do you hope that it helps kind of build culture-wise this season?
Yeah, the anybody, anywhere, anytime. I just kind of stole that from DQ. I think we mirror each other a little bit, just more of a player's coach, but building positive relationships. The relationships have always been the most important part to me, and having the players lead the team. Right, you're only going to be as good as your leader. So I think after last season, or over the course of the years, we've always appointed one captain, and I just felt like last season that putting all the onus on one person after we lose 7 guys to the draft with over 20 new players is a lot of responsibility. And that's not a knock on that one captain. It's just a lot of responsibility without necessarily teaching or giving the tools to that person to kind of help lead. So what we did was just form this leadership council of 4 guys, and we met every single 2 weeks. And we went over a John Gordon book. We talked about their leadership skills. We challenged them. And we just put a little bit more onus on building from within, and it be a little bit more player led. And I think the communication's been better, the energy's been better throughout the team, and I think they've done a really good job so far.
Going to take it back a year and a half ago when you were hired. Kind of a funny story, or when you were hired, your air conditioning apparently went out, and you had to, when David gave you a call, you kind of had to pass along your baby to a neighbor. Can you kind of detail that story of when you got hired and recount it for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a lot going on. Rob was down interviewing at a few places, and he did previously. So you're always kind of mentally prepared. You have everything ready to go, and everybody knows how I feel about this place, and if I had the opportunity, what I would want to do. But yeah, that morning it was kind of like, hey, can you be here in less than an hour? And that was the day that I was staying home watching Baylor and kind of taking care of her, and the air conditioner had been broken for a few days, and I literally threw on a suit and went like this to the next door neighbor with the baby, and I said thank you, and was on my way. And it was a pretty quick meeting with the executive staff, and just kind of reiterating being on the same page about wanting the job, and seeing where the direction was going to go, and give credit to them. They didn't really open it up, and the rest is history.
Did you kind of have an idea? I mean, were you the only interview that they ended up doing? Do you know that?
Yeah, I don't know. I assume so, just based off the timeline and not really opening it up. But again, you just never really know how it's going to go. But I was always mentally prepared for this, and I think anybody that knows me or definitely over there in the athletic department knows how I feel about this place. It's more of a lifestyle than a job. My best friends are Steve Suter, who does the radio for football. When he was here, Todd White. All these different things. At the golf tournament, we have, Walt Williams and Joe Smith and Johnny Rhodes and guys like that. So this has always been more of a lifestyle for me and a network that's been really important. Yeah, that's really important for me.
I mean, since you kind of have had a unique journey, you see a lot of coaches bounce around. I mean, your entire playing, I mean, not entire playing, but playing career led to then a coaching career that's basically only been at Maryland. How have you seen not only the baseball program, but the athletic department grow? I mean, I think you have kind of a unique perspective being here for, more than a decade at this point on how Maryland athletics has changed. What have you seen as kind of the biggest shift per se?
I think college athletics is tough, man. Even for me personally, within my purview of the baseball program, it feels like there's been 10 years of changes just the past couple of years, whether it's rules, transfer portal, NIL. NIL's now stopping a little bit more clamped, and rev share. So, internally, we've had a lot of change in college baseball, but for them over the course of time, all the way back to Debbie Yow when I was here, and all those different things is you got to love Maryland. You got to love the work here. You got to get people that are in it for the right reasons. And I think you've seen perennially with the athletic programs is you have some Hall of Fame type coaches, right? I mean, you got Missy, you got John Tillman, you got Kathy Reese. You have these people that have been here, and Sash, people that have been there, spent a lot of their lives here. And I think that's what makes this place so great is the people and the tradition that's being built. And in the athletic department, it's always in a tough position, right? I mean, there's no secret that we're in a very transient area. And if you're not super relevant, it's not going to be the easiest here just with, like you said, you got the Commanders, the Caps, the Wizards. I mean, you got monuments, you got museums. I mean, there's a lot of things to draw your attention, and it's much tougher here in the DMV than it is maybe in Lincoln, right? Where that's going to be the talk of the town no matter what. So it is challenging, but we're doing anything we can as coaches to try to build that profile and help raise money, and I think they are. And I think with the rev share, it's going to bring some balance back to football and basketball for sure. And we'll kind of see how it trickles down to the Olympic sports as we go.
You had spent some time on the Terps coaching staff before becoming the head coach, learning behind John Sheff and Rob Vaughn, two coaches that have been pivotal for the Terps baseball program rising over the past decade. When you look at your experiences behind those two, is there anything you kind of learned from them that have helped you kind of craft your own head coaching experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes all the way back to your youth, right? The coaches I had growing up in Little League or Pop Warner football or basketball. I mean, Morgan Wooten was at DeMatha, when I was there playing basketball, one of the greatest basketball minds ever, invented the McDonald's All-American game and things like that. So I was shaped by a lot of different types of people and coaches throughout. And then obviously, when you get into this high level of coaching, you're trying to take the best from kind of what you learned from those guys. But then again, you got to be authentic and make it your own. So definitely take stuff from Eric Bakich, from John Sheff, from Rob Vaughn, tidbits here and there. But you got to be authentic and make it your own. Just because the kids will see right through you, they can spot a fake a mile away. So we try to focus right now for me more on just building that relationships and just always telling the truth. It's so hard with the stimulus with social media and the transfer portal and agents and parents and friends and all that. I mean, you can get pulled in so many different directions. So we always try to communicate the best we can and build these strong relationships and try to tell the truth.
You talk a lot about having a growth mindset and building your culture at Maryland baseball, finding players. And I think that's kind of exemplary of you as a coach with learning about motor preferences and applying it to your coaching. You even have a book now about that. For you, did that kind of growth mindset start for you as a player or more so as you got into your coaching journey and learned more?
Always as a player. I was always trying to find every tiny piece of what I could, right? With, whether it was hitting stuff or feeling it out in the cage or spending time here and there or learning back when the internet kind of started when I was playing. So, no, I think, I've always tried to have that growth mindset and find that niche as a player and a coach. And I think now you're just exposed to so many different things. And whether it's trying to learn the personality type of a player, we talk a lot, me and you, over the course of the years, is we're coaching every single player differently. Every single player is differently, the way they learn, the way they communicate, all these different things. So we're trying to accentuate that, who they are on and off the field, and then trying to bring that together into one collective goal when we're out there with the brand of baseball.
Speaking of you as a player, after you were cut from the Expos, I believe in 2004 or '05, which one was it? Sorry.
I think it was '03 actually.
'03, okay.
Yeah.
You kind of went a decade there of doing different things. What were some of the jobs you picked up, and how was that kind of 10-year break almost from baseball? How did that affect you?
Yeah, I think my mind was always in the game, but when you come back to the DMV and you got to try to live, this isn't a place to just kind of live cheaply. So I was kind of thrust into, first I got into construction, was building homes, really high-end custom homes for a company out in Rockville. And then I switched to Department of Defense contractor in Roslyn. And I just, over the course of the years, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to get back in the game. So I was willing to do whatever it was. And sometimes you got to be away a little bit to kind of bring you in your journey. But I give myself a little bit of credit. Not many people would take that risk to come back. I think that first year, 2012, I made $15,000. So I think I made 15 or 20 grand total. To be able to come back at 32 years old isn't really easy. So, but when they say you're happy, you never work a day in your life. And so it ended up being the best decision I could ever make. And just nothing but pure joy. And obviously that pretty quickly in 14, winning a regional, and 15, as soon as we kind of got going, had a lot of success early with now a lot of major leaguers. So it's a great decision. At the time, I probably got some flack from parents and friends about that, but ended up working out great.
I mean, your parents are kind of Maryland lifers too. When you called them to tell them, like, I got the head coaching job, can you kind of detail what that was like, how emotional that was for the three of you?
Yeah, I mean, I just went to my dad's Sigma Chi party 2 weeks ago at his house. So he's a significant Sig, which is kind of, I think they're Sigma Chi Hall of Fame. And, just seeing all his, fraternity brothers, and I was going there 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old every year for homecoming over at the frat house. That's now changed, but so that's kind of where I started in my journey. So sure, my dad's a little bit more quiet, a little bit more rigid, but he was really proud. He doesn't say a lot, but I know he was really proud of me. And my mom was definitely probably more emotional, someone that's been more by my side in my baseball journey. And she drove to every single series. She drove to Georgia Tech. She drove to Florida State. She didn't fly. She always drove. So they've both had their part in my journey, and I'm just really appreciative of their support over the years.
Taking it to the current team this year, obviously you guys are coming off a disappointing season, but made some key additions, bringing back some veterans. Can you tell me, like, kind of the number one reason that you're really excited about this team?
Yeah, first, I mean, I don't know if I would list it as disappointing. I think 34-22 is 6th most wins in school history. Going into the last series, we were 34-19 with a top 30 RPI. So if you had told me we were in that position going to last weekend, I would have taken that. Won the first 5 weekends too. So when you lose 7 players to the draft, you have the most freshman starts in the Big Ten, and then not really an older group. I thought at a lot of the season the guys probably overachieved. Maybe wouldn't have said that last year, but I thought for where we were at after those 2 juggernaut of teams from the previous years, I think I would take away a lot of positives and view it more as a success. Yes, we could have fared better by the standings in the Big Ten, and I think we were all disappointed in that. But overall, was happy with year one, and then going into this year, just getting deeper, getting tougher. That was our 2 biggest focuses, was being a little bit tougher on the field and just adding that depth. Again, just being in a position where we knew we were going to take our lumps and play a lot of different freshmen. So you have most of those guys back. Did a good job in the portal, adding the depth from the position player side with Hollis Porter, Liam Wilson, and Aiden Hill, guys that very self-intrinsically motivated, very tough, very physical. And then on the other end, you get someone like Kyle McCoy back. It's almost like getting a frontline guy in the portal. So you mix that with a lot of the guys we have back on both sides of the ball. Joey McManus, that's been electric in the preseason. Evan Smith, who really finished out the year strong. You got Coaster, Melendez, Ryan Van Buren has added a cutter. AJ Johnson was 92, 94 the other day in the cold. I mean, you're talking about a lot of guys back and a lot of depth and experience from teams that won a lot of games. So super excited about just the depth we have and just the overall toughness for the season.
This year, you named Eddie Hakopian the team captain. He's going to be wearing that number 3, which is for the team captain. With Eddie, a guy who you thought might have gotten drafted this past summer, didn't. He sticks in College Park. Has had an interesting collegiate experience starting at JUCO, then coming to Maryland and immediately getting into a starting role here. Kind of what's the leader that Maryland is getting this year in him, and also the player that they're getting, someone who we thought could have been drafted and is now back for his senior year.
Yeah, huge bonus for us. And the team named him the captain, not me. So give them credit for that. Like, he earned it. We talk about, like I said, being player led, but I mean, in my opinion, has no business being back in college this year. One of the best hitters in the Big Ten. He wakes up and hits. And what a great journey from being undersized, not recruited by anybody at a high school, going to California, betting on himself, coming back on a loaded team, finding his way to play first base on the 2 greatest teams, talent-wise, maybe we've ever had, and just has made his mark to now where he's become that emotional leader. He's become that communicated leader, which has been really important for his journey and great for ours. So just couldn't be more happy for him. Obviously, it means a lot to me, him being from Maryland, and his brother Chris here, and dad Derek, who I've known for a long time. So I think it builds on what we want to be by keeping the best players home first, and then kind of branching out from there. But he's going to be in the staple in the lineup, of course, and we're going to kind of go as him and Chris go in the lineup.
And with Chris, obviously, he had that electric freshman year, had 15 home runs, second most on the team. What type of jump are you expecting him to have this sophomore year? What have you seen from him in the offseason, in the fall, now in the winter? And also just moving to shortstop. What do you think his presence there at that position is going to do for the team defensively?
Yeah, I think you're just looking at that natural progression. Had a great summer, right? We put him in Martha's Vineyard so he can play short on dirt all summer. So got a lot of experience at that, and he's going to move over to shortstop for us. Chris is just a really steady guy. Him and Eddie are very different from personality type-wise. They're both baseball rats, though. That's the key. So Chris really cares. Also been really good for the guys as an emotional leader. And he's very consistent, and guys know what they're going to get out of him. He's very, very tough as well. So, we're going to kind of go, like I said, as both of those guys go. I'm hoping for a big year for Chris. I think he's set up for that. He's really worked hard on his body. He's gotten more detailed and gotten more mature over the last year or so. With just like maybe some off the field stuff, right? Some of the weightlifting stuff. He was one of those guys you almost had to pull the reins on because he was doing too much, too many swings, working too hard, doing too much in the weight room, doing all that. So he's a guy that we're trying to get a little bit more focused on the performance aspect of it than just maybe overdoing it a little bit from working hard. But can't say enough about both of those guys and excited to see what kind of years they can put up.
Coach, where did the moniker Dirty Terps come from? Do you know the origin story of that?
Yeah, I created it. So I created it, I think in 2012 or something. I originally started using that. I actually got it from some of the football guys when I was playing here. So when I was playing here, some of the football guys were calling each other that. I don't even know why or where it came from. I think it may have actually came from someone like Denard Wilson, who's coaching in the NFL now. I'm not quite sure. But that's really where it started. And then when I came back to the coaching staff, I was like, I think I started the Twitter and Instagram for Maryland baseball. It wasn't really a thing back then. I created it all. And I was back then doing the majority of the posts and the tweets. So I think I just started hashtagging Dirty Terps. And I think it's a great mantra. It's a great, has a nice ring to it. And yeah, I've been using it ever since.
In terms of, now this is kind of I think a fun question and one that I want to hear your process on. You were ejected twice last year, I believe. We did lines before the season and we put you at 1.5, so you barely hit the over, but congrats there, I guess. When you do get ejected or decide to be ejected, is it generally like a decision like before you go out to meet the umpire to maybe not fire up the team, but to kind of make a point? Or is it just something that happens, or is it kind of a mix of both? Because I think baseball is kind of one of the unique sports in that regard, where there's that intimate relationship between an umpire and a manager. Can you kind of talk about the process for an ejection and what goes into it from a coach's perspective?
That's an interesting question. I don't think anybody goes into anything wanting to get ejected, because I think once you start to get on the umpires, it doesn't really matter what you're trying to do for the team. Normally, it doesn't really end up in a good thing, you know? So, I mean, I would say with your question, though, is that we talked a lot of our team about not having body language. So we don't want our team to talk back to the umpires. We don't want them to really acknowledge good or bad on the field with a ton of emotion based off things you can't really control. So in that instance, if, you know, an umpire does have a bad zone consistently or something's happening, there are definitely times where you have to have your players back. And, you know, like I said, being a player's coach, I always try to pride on not having body language and really complaining to the umpire. So there's times where I think it was a check swing at Portland that happened that ended up, you know, not being a swing. And then the zone, I think at the Penn State game was two instances where it happened more of me trying to have the players back. So it's never really that calculated on trying to get thrown out. To if I have to fire up the team by doing that, then we're in big trouble. So I don't think that's ever it, but there's definitely probably a little bit too having your players back and knowing that you're going to fight for them sometimes if they can't really speak for themselves.
Gotcha. Last question from us. You know, the Orioles have made, and we know you're a big Orioles fan, obviously, they've made some adjustments to their stadiums. You know, Camden's kind of gone back and then in and then back again, and we don't really know what's happening. For one, do you like the changes that they've made to the O Stadium? And if you could choose to do anything to the Bob, just like Dream World, is there anything that you would kind of alter or change?
Yeah, I did not like what they did at the park at Camden Yards at first. I mean, I understand trying to build, you know, around the minor league system or hitters or whatever. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me in that left field. So I'm glad they're kind of bringing it in. I think it actually will not want hitters to come here. And I know they're pretty stacked in their minor league system, and the guys they have in the big leagues are really young and under control for a while. But it wasn't the biggest fan of that. Just I'm also a traditional guy. I've been going to Camden Yards since it's open. So I think it's one of the best stadiums still in the major leagues, and it was fit pretty perfectly. So it's good to see them go a little bit back towards that. And I know the right-handed hitters there will approve of that as well. When it comes to the Bob, I think something that would be cool, obviously, if I couldn't change anything, would be to add some type of catwalk in the outfield. So I think if you can have this kind of catwalk all the way behind the wall, and where people can kind of make it one big circle and kind of travel around, I think you could build a little bit of tradition with some of the students and where they would want to go hang out and maybe heckle some other guys. So obviously there's a lot that I'm working towards to try to build a new stadium. That's going to take some money. If you guys want to pitch in at all, or find somebody that can give me some money. But other than that, I think that would just be cool. Kind of, you guys will see too with the indoor, how you kind of come down now. You know, there's some space behind that little area right there. I think it would be kind of cool if that kind of went all the way around, and fans could kind of get that 360 view.
The indoor looks great, by the way, so congrats on that.
Thank you.
And thanks again for coming on. We appreciate your time. Good luck this season. Hope everything goes well for you and the #Dirty Terps.
Thank you. I appreciate it. See you guys out there.
Thank you, Coach.